Sabrina's 70s comic, issue 22. Harvey tells Sabrina that he has to rent a boat, and she wishes him luck in the fishing contest. Good, they're bringing back his fishing hobby. That's how you establish a character. It's great that he has so many different personality traits. He seems like a deeper character than in the 90s comic. She says she'll sign for it. Then she sees a meowing cat that's black and white like Salem probably should be. Because it looks hungry, she offers to get the cat milk out of the machine. Great, give it a stomachache. I guess the comic won't show that. Harvey tells Sabrina he's got a boat, and because the captain's not here, Sabrina leaves him a note on his blackboard, and she accidentally writes "Wish us luck," and I laughed at her writing "Gave cat sorcerer milk." Harvey says she spells funny. She kisses Harvey for luck, and then a fisherman insults Harvey. So Sabrina casts a spell to get Harvey a big fish bite again, and the fish pulls him along in the canoe. Harvey asks why the fish didn't break his line, so I guess that was a part of the spell too. It spits out his hook, and the fisherman says he caught the fish when Harvey clearly did. Fortunately, he's disqualified because catching a fish in his arms is not fishing. Then it's lampshaded that the fish has no business being in a freshwater lake. Then Sabrina casts another spell to get Harvey to catch another fish, so he wins an unsatisfying trophy that means nothing if he knew better. The story ends with a joke that the captain calls Sabrina a rotten speller, and she says he's wrong with a smile, which eventually made me giggle at imagining that Sabrina wrote that down on purpose. In the next story, Ambrose lies down at the beach, telling Sabrina and Harvey to run along, and is called lazy. Then a character who looks way too much like Veronica pretends to need help so that Harvey can catch her. Right in front of her, Ambrose tells Sabrina to zap her and asks what the point is of having powers if she won't. You'd think Judy would have heard this. And this is why I'm not sure if Ambrose is a good guy or not. One minute he's a nice witch, and it's like he's been that way all along, but every so often he's just like Hilda. After Judy compliments Harvey's appearance once again, she asks him to play her game of volleyball, and Sabrina asks to play as well and is told to stay away from her. But she still refuses to use her powers. So Ambrose dumps sand on Judy for her, and she blames Harvey. He tells her to wash it off with water, and thanks to Ambrose, she wonders where the oil slick came from. And she tells Harvey that he's a jinx. Surprisingly, the story ends with Sabrina thanking Ambrose for helping her. In the next story, one of the tough guys gives Archie a hard time, telling Betty, "Why don't you throw that one back? He's too small." Sabrina wants to use magic against them, but then someone walks by holding a mirror, and somehow the beam turns her into a goat, when she wouldn't have been imagining herself to be the target of that spell. Betty finds Sabrina adorable as a goat somehow, and Sabrina realizes she has to get into a house to get to one of its mirrors, so that she could turn herself back to normal. I guess a goat's hoof doesn't point towards it, so Sabrina would need a mirror to affect herself. Sabrina pushes Betty towards her house, which just amuses her as she assumes she's hungry. Then Betty's told, "No, there are limits and you've just reached them," so they have to leave her house. Of course, Archie's mom minds too. I was surprised we didn't see her too. Jughead goes into his house, and Sabrina runs into it behind him. She's hungry because everyone was talking about food, so she eats some raisins in his house. And lucky for her, she finds a mirror and she turns herself back to normal. Then somehow Jughead's mother thinks he's the one who ate the entire box of raisins, including the box itself, and compares him to a goat. In the next story, Harvey jokingly calls Sabrina's attention to a book on witchcraft, and the baseball gets popped just at hitting the book. I guess it really does have Hilda's residual magic on it, because he's immortal. Harvey says that at first he thought the magic book was a comedy, but people believe in it. Didn't we already do this plot with Jughead? It's still interesting though. Harvey warns the old lady librarian that some people might believe in witchcraft after reading that book, and she doesn't believe him. And Sabrina uses her magic to make sure something won't fall from the ceiling. The librarian decides to put the book in the fiction section. Why didn't she do that earlier? Isn't Sabrina aware of the magic book? Doesn't she remember what happened when Jughead got a hold of one? Why wouldn't she cast a spell to get rid of the magic book, so no one would cast spells from it? Then Harvey recites one of the spells from the book, and somehow, without even holding the book, the spell works on someone, giving him a tail. According to Sabrina, the magic is in the words themselves. Huh? I guess she means the specific sequence of words. Sabrina undoes the spell, Harvey says another one, and some people witness the guy being the victim of his spell and blame him. So Sabrina casts a spell to send them away. Good thing she had the time to say all of that. You'd think Harvey would have heard everything behind him. But instead he's still smiling with his eyes closed. Sabrina needs to get his mind off the spells. He'd be lucky to have memorized more than 2 after one read of the book. So Sabrina kisses him twice and makes him forget about the book. Sadly, the story ends with Harvey running after Sabrina wanting another kiss, even though they're dating right now. And she doesn't want one regardless. I thought she loved him. To the point where she casts spells on any girls who try to go after him. Like, could have had a heartwarming ending where she kissed him again. In the first story, a fisherman insults Harvey's skills, so Sabrina uses magic to make sure he shows him up with big fish to spite the fisherman, even if it means he got a trophy he didn't deserve. It's a predictable route to take with Harvey liking fishing. It makes sense that the first fish would be too big for him, and I love that the jerk fisherman got disqualified like it was realistic. In the second story, a woman flirts with Harvey in front of Sabrina, but Sabrina refuses to do anything about it this time, as opposed to last issue. I guess she was in a bad mood last issue. So Ambrose has to save the day by using magic to give Judy such a bad day that she refuses to be with Harvey ever again. And fortunately, since Ambrose is a relative, Sabrina's grateful for the nice gesture. It makes her look like a hypocrite though. In the third story, Sabrina doesn't get to punish the tough guy who insulted Archie, because the guy with the mirror in his hands shows up and reflects her spell back at her, turning her into a goat. So she has to sneak into Jughead's house to get access to another mirror to turn back to normal. Wait, why couldn't she just go after the guy with the mirror in his hands again? I like that she asked where the guy with the mirror came from, so it was lampshaded that he came out of nowhere. And the fourth story confuses me, because after Harvey returns a magic book to the library, he casts spells just by saying them without holding the book. And Sabrina actually expects me to believe that even mortals can cast certain spells just by saying them. What kind of lack security is that? Even if that could be possible, witches would have enchanted that into being impossible, because you can't have mortals using magic by accident. That'd be dangerous. At least it's interesting and exciting to see the mortal characters join in on the fun, so I can't help but like it. I've never seen it before, and you'll never know which spell's coming next. But it's still stupid. Sabrina should have just said that the magic book had residual witch magic that rubbed off on Harvey temporarily. And then the ending makes me wonder if Sabrina even loved Harvey at all.